Howdy, howdy, everybody. Just getting back from vacation and yeah, getting settled in here again. Had a pretty good trip this time. A couple weeks, anyhow, we were gone and have a new granddaughter, so pretty exciting stuff. Anyhow, today we want to work on rings. I know Valentine's Day is coming up, and uh, rings are always fun, and they're always make good presents as well. So, anyhow, this is opal. It's 3 or 4 different colors of opal in it. And we're going to show how to do those rings today. And we're also going to um, show how to do 2-piece rings. We'll talk about them a little bit. We're going to use a 2-piece core, a split core. This is a channel core, the one that I just showed you. So it is, I already got it over here. It has a channel in it that we're going to actually use for inlaying. So we can do inlay that way. And these are one of the faster rings you can do. They're really easy to do, and they really come out nice. The cores for these ones here come from I'm getting them from a place online on Etsy called Spirit Wood Turning, and his tungsten cores, which is what I like here. They don't scratch real easy at all, and they in fact when you're using them, the sandpaper won't even really scuff them up. So they're really easy to polish out, and it's really easy to make a nice ring with without having to take the extra streams of polishing them out. So if you're going to do split cores, I would seriously think about the tungsten ones. Again, you can get them through Spirit Wood Turning. I believe also Dreamwoods has them on Etsy as well. And stuff. There's other places as well, but that's where I get mine. And then if you're going to do 2-piece, the 2-piece ones, are good for if you're doing like a hybrid blank from one of our ring cubes or a set. They're also good for that. And then if you're doing an all resin or an all wood band, these have protection on the sides, so it doesn't break as easy, and they're great. And they're 2-piece, and they come apart, and then you insert your piece in it and glue it in and snap it together. These are a little bit more work in the end, as they require a little bit more polishing, and you with the tungsten cores, if you get glue on the inside, you can literally pretty much take your fingernail and scrape it off. With these titanium cores and the others, if you get sterling silver or stainless steel, you wind up scratching them to get the glue off for one, and you wind up scratching them during sanding. So you wind up having to do a lot more polishing out. And there's ways to do that, and we can talk about that a little bit later too. And then the third option is you can get a stainless steel or probably other cores in different types of metals that are 1-piece, and they're just an insert. So if you're wanting to have no band showing on the sides, these would work well. The biggest thing with these, remember, is that if you're doing, say wood or burl on it, then the edges are not protected. So one little ding on something with your hand, and you could possibly damage the ring on the sides. So maybe for plastics or for different things like that, this would be good. Or for just a backer for wood as well. It's just not going to be as durable as a ring. So those are those options there. For cores, you can get cores at ringsupplies.com. It carries all these other ones. I know there's some of the guys are using these stainless cores. I think they get them from Taiwan and places over online, and they say they get some good deals on them, but they say they're not sized very well and they're pretty poor quality. So just remember that if you're getting them, where you're getting them matters sometimes. We're going to also talk about a little bit later about doing matching sets. So you can actually start out with a bigger blank, and I don't have one out right now, but you could start out with a bigger blank that's basically a 3-inch diameter or bigger and solid, and then you could cut this core out and you can make yourself or your wife a bracelet out of it, and you can make an actual matching ring out of it as well. So don't be don't you need to use your imagination here. I mean, you can certainly do some very cool things with matching sets. I do these basically if I had a big core on a waste glue block and then this was on there, I would core out the whole inside of here and uh, and finish out everything but this inside corner on this side over here. And that would allow me to go ahead and get it all shaped, cut to size, shaped, sanded and polished. Or if I'm doing a CA finish, do your CA finish on it. And then you can, last thing is you can go ahead and part it off. And then when you part it off, you can easily reverse this on a chuck, being very gentle, and finish out this inside edge. And then you have this left as the core that you can make your ring out of. So you get that out of there and making it a matching set, which is pretty neat. You can also take that a third step further. So this one and this one came out of this core here. And so I've already got the bracelet, the ring that needs to be finished still, cut and finished. And then this came out of another one, but you can also get a pendant. You can also do a pendant still out of here. So you have all kinds of options. Again, you could do a set that's actually a 3-piece set. So really cool, getting a ring, bracelet, and a pendant out of it. So use your imagination when you're doing these. You can do some really cool stuff with them. So the first thing we're going to do is glue up a core. So this is the one I just did at Turner's Warehouse. And where's the other one at? We turned it. I didn't finish it yet. It doesn't have any kind of finish on it. And my camera's not going to focus. I'm too close. We'll be able to focus on it better when I'm away on the lathe here shortly, because I've got it set up for that. But what we need to do first is we need to think about what we want the background to be. In this case, we painted it black, and then we put our biggest stones in first, and then we build up along that. And we can do that, and I'll turn the camera around here now, and we'll get started with a glue up. And we'll show the process of doing one of these inlaid ones. Bear with me just a minute here. We'll get it over here where we're going to be working. Okay. By the way, this opal that we're using today also comes from Spirit Wood Turning on Etsy. And there's other ones too. DreamWorks is one, I believe. So it's always good to put a piece of paper or something underneath it. You want to catch the leftover opal that we're going to be using. This is just a 3D printed stand. It holds a ring mandrel, And I've got the ring core on here that I'm going to be working on today already on it. One of the first things we want to do though is is just a regular core. It hasn't been painted or anything yet, and we want to if you're going to be using a lighter colored opal, where you really, it's like your pins. If you want to really um, highlight the blank, you have the chance right now. Um, so we're going to take. I'm just going to use a black marker, and we're going to paint the core. So I'm doing the sides of the core and the back, just like you would painting the inside of a ring or a blank for a pin, making a pin. Not too worried about getting it on the core itself on the outside. If we do, it'll come off. Let me zoom out just a little bit here for this part. Anyhow, the black background will really help make the opal pop. You could use other colors as well. I guess that didn't help. Turn the camera around here a little bit. There we go. So as you can see, I'm just painting the core. In this case with a marker. You could use acrylic markers. I know a guy that does that, and he uses different colors a lot of times and really highlights it and gets some neat effects. You could probably use any of your regular paints as well. Spray paint. I don't know. I wouldn't want to get it on the outside because you got to clean it off later, but you could use like Testors model paints or any of them I would imagine would be fine. So we're just coloring this in. If you don't paint it, it'd be fine as well. It just won't show up quite as well. This one was done. It doesn't really show too much of the opal in it right now because I can't zoom in, but it was done without a black background. Anyhow, so we're going to put this back in our ring mandrel holder. This is just a 3D printed one that I printed. You can get the file on Thingiverse for it. Or you can get these, I think, through ringsupplies.com, carries them as well, I've seen. So we're going to pick a couple different colors of opal. You could use one color or you could use multiple colors. It's really up to you and your project or what you're working on. Here I have, I think this is, what was it called? I believe it's, oh, I can't think of the name of it. He's got 2 or 3 different names of them, but well, they all have different names. But oh, what the heck was that one? It's one of my favorites. But we have a white here that's I think he calls pina colada or something like that, and it's really, really pretty white. Some fire opal that's he has a pink and some blues, and there's all kinds of different colors that you can get. But use whichever colors you prefer. If you wanted to do big stones like turquoise, we certainly could. And now would be the time to do our bigger stones if we were going to put some in. Today I'm not going to do turquoise in this one. We're just going to use regular. So I'm just going to go ahead and let me see if I can get to where I'm not blocking the camera. This is just medium CA glue, and I have an activator for it. And I'm going to get this ready here. I think on this ring we'll do maybe we'll do pinks and blues, a little white. The blue seems to be a little bit thicker here. wider pieces, bigger pieces in this cut. So I'm going to start with them. I'm just going to put a drop of medium CA on here. And then I'm going to go ahead and just start. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. Building it. Once we get this original first dam up, kind of, so to speak, it makes it a lot easier. We'll give it a little squirt with some activator. And then we can roll this over just a little bit and we'll continue to build it. Hey Adam, how are you, buddy? Hope everybody's been doing well. Haven't got to talk to anybody in a while. Anyhow, so then we're going to put another drop on beside that. And add some more. Well, maybe if it doesn't want to come out of this bag. Here we go. I'm just trying to fill in the best I can here. We're not worried about too much about getting it too tight, but we would like to get as many of the voids filled up as we can. Because later, if there's open holes, we got to come back and fill them. Get down in there. So I'm kind of just alternating right now from blue to pink to white, but you could mix them all. It's really up to you. You're the artist here. And I also use scissors a lot on these, trying to actually, or not scissors, but tweezers. Trying to really pack some of this in a little tighter when I can. So this is the kind of tedious part. But it goes pretty fast. We'll continue building this right on around. We're almost there now. All right. So that got that. Now we want to go through and just make sure that if we have open cavities, that we fill them up best we can. If y'all have questions during the live, ask them as we go if you can, so we can get them answered for you. I'll try to keep my eye on the screen. When we're doing this as well, we want to, like we said, we're filling holes right now, and as long as we can at least fill the holes with glue. If nothing else, we want them filled up with glue. If they're big enough that we can get a stone in them, then I would prefer to put a stone in them. When we start turning this down here in a little bit, if there's any open holes, I've got to go back and fill them. And it just makes it harder. We have to do it again later, but that's okay. All right. So this one's already kind of got a little bit of a mix in it. This one bag of mine does here. So I'm going to go ahead and just mix this in with them. Usually I have a different bag that I would get going for all the scrap. And that would be my a bag for just miscellaneous ones. But when I'm not trying to keep the colors separated some more. Anyhow, get this off of here. All right. So that one's all glued up. While we wait for this to dry a little bit, I'm going to actually, I normally would when I can, I normally would take and use my, I have some readers. I would get them out and take a closer look and make sure that all the cavities are filled. But I just do my best here. That looks pretty good. So let's let this dry just a little bit. We'll put it back on here. By the way, these ring mandrels come from ringsupplies.com. That's where I got mine at. There's other places I imagine to sell them too. But so while we're letting that dry just a little bit, I'm going to spray it good with activator. And then we will we'll work on a different type. All right, let's set that to the side. So I think we could go ahead and turn this one down if we wanted to and polish it out. This is all resin, so I would not put a finish on it. This one here, it's just a real slim piece. It's a two-piece core though. We could work on that one. Or we could work on turning one to fit here. And I think we'll take this all resin blank. And I'll show you how we use a ring, how we use a, yeah, I can find it. How I do a, bear with me just 1 second here while I find this. What did I do with it? Just had it out. There it is. Yeah. We'll show you how to use a boring bar. If you're going to do two-piece cores, and you're going to do a lot of them, then I would suggest you do a boring bar. If you're going to do, that might hold it. If no, we can put a glue block in it. This is a boring bar tool. There's a number of places that sell them. This is for aligning the hole and for sizing the hole to shape. It really helps to get that hole parallel, as well as sorry, I'm looking for pieces as I go here, as well as helping to get it to the right size and sneak up on the right size. So it just helps out. If you don't have one, I did them for quite a while, but without them, you can certainly get by without them. So this is an all resin block, I believe. It was a scrap block that I had off something. I thought it would be cool for a ring. But we do sell ring cubes, and here's one right here. That's a hybrid ring cube that we make and sell. We can, well, occasionally you'll find that we have a single blank one as well. And if I was doing a single blank one, I would use a glue block here on my chuck. And is what I would do is use a glue block and let me pan this up. I would use a glue block here and hold the glue block, and then I would glue this to it. If I was going to use this blank, and I would use hot glue, or you can use double-sided tape. Hey Ed, how are you, buddy? So you can use double-sided tape on it, or you can use hot glue as your backer, either one. And that's what I would do with a smaller blank. This fits in my chuck fine. And if I was going to get 2 rings out of this, I would figure out which way I wanted it, and then cut it, or go ahead and bore it for the smallest one, and then bore it for the second one, and then slice the pieces off. And I do that with a ring, with a glue block as well. We can go ahead and show you how to glue it on. Since I've been talking about that, we might as well. This one looks like it'll probably work for a glue block. It's just a scrap tenon piece that I had. So I saved those scraps for this. And I got the hot glue gun glued up. While that's doing that, we'll face this off. How you been, Ed? Hope you've been doing well. We're going to go ahead and face this off. And facing it off is making it smooth and flat and parallel and everything uniform. And I'm just using the side of a bowl roughing gouge here. With it completely closed up. And we can zoom this in a little further. So here would be the tool wide open. And we're going to roll the tool over to where it's almost at 9 o'clock. And I'm using the bottom edge to cut with. We're going to just check it and make sure it's flat. And it is. So now we have a nice candidate for a glue block. So your choices here would be to use double-sided tape, which you can certainly do. I'm going to rough this up just one side just a little bit. Make sure there's no oil on it. We're going to mark an X or a center point. I'm just going to guess at center, but normally you could put an X across the 2 corners and you'd have your center mark. Probably close enough. See if this glue is heated up. This is just regular hot melt glue. You can see I roughed that up, that side up. We're going to put a nice sized glob of hot glue on it. And then we're going to use our tailstock to actually clamp it. And hold that for us. Hot glue holds a lot more than you think it does. So now I could easily do 2 rings out of this, a matching set if I wanted to. In this case, we're just going to do 1, and we're going to do a single piece core on this one, I think. Let this set up just a few minutes. While we're waiting on that, we'll check questions. Yep, don't see any, so it looks like we're good there. All right. And now we've got to size this for this core. I think we'll use this core. So this is a single piece core, and we'll just show you how to do it and size it for it. It would be the same thing if we were using a two-piece core. It would be the same process to drill this out, to size it for it. While that's drying, let me grab a drill bit and my Jacob chuck. For the initial hole, it really doesn't matter what size you start with, as long as it's big enough for your cutter to go into or your tool that you're doing your hollowing with, and small enough for your core. So in this case, I'm just choosing a 1/2 inch bit. Just make sure that it's smaller than our core. It is. And I typically drill at lathe speeds less than 500 RPM. And just nice and slow and easy, let it find its way. Now, if I was doing two rings, I would make sure I drill deep enough for both of them. And then I would do the small, I would work on the small one first. And then this piece back here would be my second one. In this case, we're only going to do 1. And we want to make sure that we're deep enough for our core, and I'm not quite there yet. We'll go on a little further. See a lot of red here. It's like this one may mostly be red, which is okay. It is Valentine's Day coming up. All right. Next thing here, we can get rid of this. And we want to put our boring tool in, our boring head. This one came from ringsupplies.com. I know you can get them on other places as well. I think you can anyhow. I've heard eBay and a number of places. And it's basically a boring tool. I may have to adjust the camera here a little bit to see if we can get it where you can see better. Not sure if I'm going to be able to get it too much better than that, but you can see it's got a cutting head here. That's a carbide cutting head. And the adjustments here are on this side in, I believe, millimeters or 1/1000th of an inch. So it allows you to adjust it at a very slow rate. Right now is all we want to do is make sure that we are starting out here, and it'll go in smaller than our hole. And we're going to bring it out till it's just touching. And then we can adjust it just a hair more. And that'll be our first cut. These heads come with different cutters. They're just bigger and smaller cutters. If I was doing something more deep, a deeper hole, then I'd use a longer cutter on it. This particular one came with 9, I believe, or 11 cutters. So you have quite a bit of options. Anyhow, we're going to hold this and we're going to go ahead and drill it. And you can see it's just shaving that off. And you'll hear when you bottom out, you listen for the change. Now, my hole is plenty deep. We're not going to bottom out in it. Anyhow, and then we're going to just turn it over and we're going to adjust it again. When I start getting closer, I'm going to worry about how much I'm cutting at a time. Right now, we're not too worried about it. I'm way oversized. So it's going to take us just a little bit of time to get to our cutting, or to our hole size. Brian, it's called a boring head, or boring head. This particular one cost about $100, I think. You can get them for cheaper. I've heard different places, and is what it helps you with is it helps you with two things. One is it helps you to keep this hole parallel, and the other one is that it helps you to keep the hole, to really sneak up on your hole size. So when I first started, I did not have one of these when I first started with rings, and I tried skews, using a skew to get in there with, and found that pretty hard to do because it would always hit on it. I wound up taking a, and I don't have it here, but I wound up taking a chisel, wood turning chisel, a 1/4 inch one, and I ground it to where it was like at a 10-degree bevel here. And I found that I could get that in there pretty easily, as long as I wasn't extending over my tailstock too much or over your tool rest too much. You want to be only minimal there because it's real thin metal. But I was able to go in and cut that hole fairly well without it. Yeah, it definitely helps, Brian. It's just, if you're not doing it with a boring head, it's a challenge. If you're going to do a lot of rings, and by a lot, I say, you got to figure out what's a lot to you. But if you're going to be doing quite a few, it makes life so much easier, because we can just continue to bore in here. Until we sneak up on our size that we're after. And we're going to have to start checking our size. You can do that two ways. You can just keep holding the core up until you get there, or you can use a micrometer and measure it, and then go just a hair less maybe. And then I'm just going to use this to size it. So I know when I'm getting close, then I can really start fine tuning. And I've got quite a bit to go here. One other thing I should note here is that with this as being all resin, I should have the lay speed up quite a ways here. You heard a little bit of rough noise there, probably a little bit of chipping happening on the inside. Even though this is a carbide tool, speed is our friend. See the ribbon we're getting off of it now since I increased the speed? With resin blanks, remember speed is your friend, and you want that if you can get it. So we have quite a ways to go. I'm going to advance it quite a ways here. I'm not worried about sneaking up on it right now. All right, we're getting fairly close. So I'm going to not go quite so far right now as I've been going with them. Hey, Dane, how are you, buddy? Nice to see you again, sir. You missed a great demo there in your area, Dane. We just got back from out there. It was a wonderful time. But kind of doing most of the same demo right here, at least some of it. All right, we're to that spot now. So now we really need to start watching how far we are advancing at a time. So when I say that, is what I mean by that is this. This is 1/1000th here, each little line on here. Let's see. Okay, I'll have to take it out so you can see it. I don't know if I can get it to focus on it or not. Yeah, I can't. So there is segments here on this wheel. This wheel turns and they're labeled in 1/1000ths. So it really helps you to fine tune. And we're going to start using those lines now and advancing it only that much at a time. Hope that MRI went well, Dane. That's what's important there. All right, and we're getting close. And advance it one more or maybe a half now. We'll just go like a half. Brian, if you're looking at one of these boring heads, you need to know what your taper is for lathe. So if it's an MT2, you need to know that. Okay, so you can see now it's starting to go in. It's just right there. It is really, really close. So I'm not even going to advance it, the cutter this time. Instead of advancing it, I'm going to just go back in the same hole and kind of clean it one more time. See if that does it. If it doesn't do it, then we will advance it another half or so. But a lot of times just going back in and just giving it a second cut. We'll take enough off. We were that close. Oh, that's so close. We're going to have to go just a hair more. I want it tight, but I want to be able to get glue on it, and I want the glue to stay. So glue to stay and to bond. All right, we're still just a little bit big. Get my, hopefully I didn't go too far. Ah, one more. Famous last words, right? I'm gonna go one more. See, and I could force that in. I don't think I would have any room for the glue. So we're going to cut it again. All right, there we go. So we're there now. Now we need to go ahead and we're done with the boring head. Get it out of our way. Now, like a while ago, you seen me face off that glue block. We're going to face this off as well. Lay speed up. I should be cutting it about center. Sometimes when you're using a boring head, I've noticed that uh, the initial area that you go into, sometimes it's just a little bit, for whatever reason, bigger. I think it's finding its spot a lot of times when you first enter that hole. So I like to take a little bit off here to screw that back up and to get it back to a parallel hole area. Here we need to go ahead and check that we are flat. And I'm just a hair in. Now we're good. And then we can go ahead and um, rough this out. I was looking for my there it is, wire brush. So roughing this out, we can use a bowl gouge. Now you can use what you want, but you can use a bowl gouge to true it up. It's a bowl gouge with a fingernail grind. You can use a spindle roughing gouge. You can use a skew. Take small bites. Not quite. All right. Now we have to mark our depth that we want to part this off at. So I'm going to come in, move this camera over just a little bit so you guys. So I'm going to come in and hold it up flush to this side and put a pencil mark on here. And I'm going to check and see where I'm at with my pencil line. I'm a little bit big. We need to part it off at the right spot or close to it. So here is where I just go in just a little bit with a thin parting tool. And then I'll come over and I'll check it. And it's a little bit wide. So we're going to mark over. And that's pretty good. I think we could clean that up and call that good. So the next thing here is to go ahead and part that off. I'm just going to catch it. If you're uncomfortable catching it, just go so far and then use a saw and cut it off. All right, that's that. So if we were doing a two-piece ring set right here, where they were a matching set, this would have been the small ring that just came off. And now this would be our bigger ring because we can make that hole bigger now. We can't go smaller. And we still have enough to get the second ring out of. So that's how you do a matching set. The other thing is at this point, if you want to instead, you could face this back off right here and you could get a pendant out of here. So right here, this pendant came out of a blank like that, except for a little bit bigger. And then I use an off-center jig to drill this hole off center. And there's a few different companies that make off center jigs, including Ruth Niles. So a lot of you use Ruth Niles bottle stoppers. She makes an off center jig that you can use to drill this off center and to do. It's neat for doing pendants. So it gives you another option anyhow. But this is what we're after today. Is this right here? Now, if I was done with this, I could simply part this off right here, and then I can reuse this glue block. So your pieces that you use when you're doing bowls and platters and stuff, if they have a tenon on them, or if you're turning lidded boxes and you have a tenon piece, I save those for future. So right, Ed? Good stuff. Let me zoom out a little bit here. Try that for now. Okay, so that got that. So we have this one ready to go now. I'm done with this chuck for now. Now we need to glue this core in, and it fits in nice and snug and goes all the way in and out, no problem at all, which is perfect. That's what the purpose of the boring bar. If we're once we get used to using it, if we're doing it properly, that should be the fit we get. So it's a nice, smooth, even fit. It's not loose on one side, too tight on one side. It's nice and parallel the whole way. I typically, for the most part, when I'm doing these, I prefer to use two-part epoxy. I just think it makes a little bit longer lasting bond. But for the purpose of this video, we are going to use super glue. And we're going to use thick super glue. So it's kind of inevitable. We're going to wind up getting some on the inside of the core, just about no matter what we do. If we've got a good glue joint all the way around, you wind up with some of it inside of it for whatever reason. We're just going to wipe it out, and we're going to have to polish that out later. So I'm putting a good bead of glue on here all the way around. And then I'm making sure that it's covering all the areas. Smoothing it around. Make sure it covered it all. And then we're just going to press it on. And of course, we got our big glob inside. Which we're going to wipe out right now. Best I can. Now, if this was a two-piece core, we would be doing two pieces like this. All right. The rest we'll have to get out later. See if I got enough activator left. Just about out. All right, we're going to set that to the side. Remember that activator is just activating what's on the outside, so it's not really doing much on the inside. We want that inside, the glue inside, to have a chance to set up a little bit. So we could also, and we probably should have sprayed the core when we pushed it in. You just have to watch that because sometimes you can get it stuck in there if you don't get it in fast enough. All right, let's go back up here. And we'll go back to our glue up that we started this morning. That's been sitting over here drying. So this one we started this morning, and it's all looking pretty good. It looks like we do have some holes that we're going to have to fill. So it helps if I put a 1/2 inch collet chuck in there. It's a ring mandrel again from ringsupplies.com, and a collet chuck, 1/2 inch collet chuck that holds it. And I might be able to get that to come in a little closer on the camera. Doesn't seem like my autofocus is working very well. Move the camera back just a little bit to see if I can get it to focus better. Might help. All right. Anyhow. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start turning this down now. I need to change cutters in my carbide tool real quick. So give me just a second to do that, since I forgot. Let's see if I have another carbide tool. So you could easily sand this down. In fact, I know one of the guys that does a lot of rings with these crushed opal ones and inlay ones. He won't even use a carbide on them. He sands it all the way down. So he'll start with 80 grit and just work his way down from here. I find this crushed opal is not that hard. It cuts fairly well with carbide if you just take your time with it. I should also note that when you're using a collet chuck like this, normally you put a drawbar through your headstock to hold it that threads into the back side here. That's advisable, so I would advise you to do that. I'm used to kind of doing it without one, but you'll see me always cutting this direction to where I'm putting pressure against my headstock with it. So I'm not cutting the opposite direction, and if I see it start wanting to work its way out, I can stop the lathe real quick. So lathe speed up fairly high again, like you're turning a pin. I will say that this opal will dull your carbide tip pretty quickly. In fact, you'll wind up usually wasting one side of your carbide tool per ring pretty much. Now this one has a couple holes I can see right here, so I'm going to just fill them. Or not, my tip is clogged up now. Typically I do this different too, and I'll show you on the next hole. So since I did it that way, by putting the glue in first and then spraying it, a lot of times the activator pushes the glue around, and a lot of times it'll push it out of the hole. I found that out the hard way on pins. So typically is what I do is spray glue, spray, and the glue will stay in the hole better. So just a little tip for you. I'm about out of accelerator here. So I'm just filling any low spots. All right, I think that got them all filled up. Maybe. Oh, give that just a second. So now we need to make sure that we get anything that's dull off the metal. And we can do that by continuing to work it down, just like we were going to cut through the metal. If I got any glue on the sides of the core, I can kind of clean them up. Remember, this is titanium. Or sorry, not titanium, tungsten. Let's see. Yeah, tungsten. And super strong stuff. So I've still got a little bit of dull stuff on it, which is over glue. A little bit too much glue. You got to get that off. To be shiny all the way. Just a hair more. You can see I'm not cutting that metal at all. It just won't cut. All right. Just a hair more there. All right, we're there. So the next thing just is to polish this out. So if this was a soft stone like turquoise, then I would make sure you flood the whole stone with thin CA before you polish it out. This is all embedded in thin CA, and any of the stone was softer, it would soak into the stone. So we'd be polishing plastic either way. So this one's ready to polish out. And I used Nona paper to polish it out. And unfortunately, I didn't bring any water down. So I need to go grab some. I typically use water and a little bit of Dawn dish soap. I'm seeing if I can feel any hollow spots with my thumbnail. If I can, then I would want to fill them up now. And I'm getting any residual glue off the core with my thumbnail, just by scraping it. All right, so we can probably move on to the next one. Well, for those of you, if you don't know how to polish out, we'll go ahead and polish it. Bring it back and forth, keeping it wet. Again, it's just water with a little bit of dish soap in it. Typically, I'm about 1200 RPM or less. And I do like a 20 count to myself. That's 1. 2. 3. 4. 5, 6. At this point, if you want to, you can use something like McGuire's plastics. Um, if I'm applying it, I do it with my finger. You shake it up well. Literally, it takes a drop. Lay speed down enough that it's not slinging it off. And I'm just rubbing it with my finger back and forth. It's going to turn, it's going to start breaking down the granules in it. And the more it breaks those down to finer particles, the more it polishes. And you wind up just a wax, basically, that you're polishing with. And then as the last step, if you want to at the end, there you go, Greg. It'll be on my YouTube channel if you want to catch it later. That's kind of why we switched over to YouTube, so everybody can find them easier. And then if you want to watch it, or if you want to polish it out later, further than this, you can use a cotton cloth on a Beal system. And that one's done. So we can take that off. And I can see if I can bring it up to the camera closer. If not, I'll have to, I don't know why my camera's not focusing real well right now. For whatever reason. Let's see here, where are we at? Let me see if I can bring, there we go. Yeah, you can see the different colors of opal. It's got some pinks, some blues. Some white. Really cool stuff. And this one we did, this is my wedding band. And the colors just don't come out in this light. But in the daylight, these things just light up. And they look really just gorgeous. Anyhow, so that's how you do that. Now, if I would have had, glue on the inside, got glue on the inside of the core or on the side of the core here with this tungsten, you can literally just take your fingernail and rake it off and it'll come right off of there. So that's the nice thing about tungsten. All right. There we go. There we go. All right. That should be true, and that's good. Okay. Back in business. We'll cut this with carbide tools again. It's plastic, light speed up. We could also use a parting tool or a skew as a skew, which is typically what I do, but most of you have carbide tools, so we'll do this way. If we were using a parting tool, it would do the same. The small bites. So this is, I believe, titanium, and it'll actually cut a little bit easier. The metal will, so it'll actually squish it as well, and we'll wind up polishing it out. You can see it's softer metal, but I'm actually getting metal shavings with my carbide tool. So I can actually round it a little bit since it's actually cutting it. With the tungsten, there's no rounding it. But here I'm actually cutting metal. I prefer to get the hair rounded when I have the choice. This one did not get back painted, and it should have. I can tell you that now because I can see the tube through it in places. So this was one that I was doing as a test. That's why it never got turned, but it was a test. Yeah, I was working on something and testing it. Anyhow, so you get the idea here that that would be the same process that we just did a while ago. And we would polish it all the way out right now. Now with this one, at the end is what I wanted to show you was, I'm not going to go ahead and polish it out because I really don't like the look of this one. You can still see, you can see through it in areas. So this was one that was done with one of our early test plates. Is what I was going to show you here though, was that you can get through ringsupplies.com is where I get mine at. You can get these mandrels, and he's got them labeled here. This one's 800, 320, 240, and they're sanding mandrels, all the way up to 1,000 grit. And when you get CA on the inside of a blank like this titanium, you would start with 240, and it's a sanding mandrel. And when it gets dull, you just simply peel off a new piece. It's a roll on here, so it's kind of a cool thing. And then you use a drill or a Dremel. And then I would come in and you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but there's all kinds of glue on the inside of this core. See all the glue on the inside of that core? So that we could take and come in here. And that's got so much glue on it, this one does. That I might have even took, it's getting it. You can see right there that it got it pretty quickly. So you get the glue off and then you work it through the grits all the way up to 1,000 grit, and it'll polish that inside up nicely. Again, ringsupplies.com. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it. ringsupplies.com has these, and I don't remember how much they are a piece. So that was my presentation today on ring making and the different types. Again, I would encourage you to really think outside the box. And let me get the camera up here real quick, and we'll talk more about that. But and 1 second here. Here we go. So yeah, I would really encourage you all to think outside the box, especially with doing bracelets, matching sets, doing a pendant. So you could, on the outside of a core, get 90% of it turned, part it off, turn the ring out of here, part it off, and you can get a pendant out of the waist block that's still left on here. So kind of neat things that you can do and get making sets for Valentine's Day are a wonderful thing. If you guys, for those of you that are doing resin casting, and if you want to make your own blanks, let's see if I can find one. You can go down to, this is a too bigger one, but they sell a 3-inch one too. You can go down to Lowe's or Hobby Lobby or Home Depot or any of the hardware stores and get flat caps for plumbing, for PVC. And I simply drill a hole in the bottom of them, and I put a piece of tape over the hole, and then I spray it with mold release, stoner mold release. If I'm using Alumilite's urethane resin, I spray it with stoner mold release. You can cast right in your pipe, and you can get a blank big enough to get these out of. And you can do an all resin pour that way. So you've got a mold pretty easily to make them if you're doing resin casting. And if you're doing epoxy, you just need to use an epoxy urethane or epoxy mold release instead of a urethane mold release. But I've heard it works as well. So anyhow, unless you guys and gals have other questions today, I'll wrap that up for the day. Tomorrow we'll come on again, and I'll see if I can figure out why my camera's not auto-focusing as well. But we'll come on again, and we will do lidded boxes. So lidded boxes are always fun. I have done lidded boxes for years. As a matter of fact, I started stabilizing and casting specifically for lidded boxes. So to give me more options with that, and for the lid fit that we'll talk about tomorrow. But you don't have to have stabilized material. You can use regular wood and do a loose fitting lid on a box. In fact, I find that most women prefer a looser fitting lid, and most wood turners prefer a tighter fitting lid, but and a snap fit lid like I do. But it's really all what you like. So, well, thanks for joining us on the page. If you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel, and you'll get future live events. We're going to try to do more of our lives on this YouTube page, so that you guys can find our live videos easier later, is the main purpose. But we're going to only really advertise them on the Burroughs Blanks and More page, at least for now. As we're trying to do this for our group, for you guys. As an administrator of the group, we want to push education to you when we can. And a lot of you, we realize, don't have access to turning clubs, local turning clubs, and this is your internet is your only way to to get information. So we want to try to help you with that. Anyhow, thank you all for watching. Hope you all have a wonderful day. We'll try to come on tomorrow afternoon, fairly early, I would imagine, and do boxes. So come join us for that. Otherwise, I'll try to come on a couple times a week at least here in the next few weeks before we get busy with our spring stuff with our other business. Also, check out our website if you haven't already, www.franklinblanksandcrafts.com for some cool blanks. Talk soon. Have a good day.